Hello, welcome to Moxie Journal. My name is Calyx, or I go by Moxie. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm so glad you are here with me today. Today I'm going to be starting off on my very first Decan walk. And by starting, I'm a couple of days behind. I actually did start on the exact day. I just didn't film it. So today we're going to be talking about this first Decan of the new year. I'm going to go through the books I'm using for reference and to kind of work with. I'm going to talk about the different decks that I'm looking at and how I'm using them. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about when I say Decan or Decan walk, then I am extra glad you are here, but I'm also going to tell you that I am probably not the best person to explain it because I'm very new to it. This is my first time, and while I have all the enthusiasm, I'm still a little rough on the understanding. The first time I heard this word was Sylvie over at Tarot Magpie was talking about it and just kind of mentioned a Decan walk, and I tried to Google it, and I was like, what is this? I had no idea. I didn't even sort of understand enough context to know exactly how to research it very well. But then I started kind of seeing it in other tarot channels. I actually followed Marlena Teresa, and Marlena did a great job. She has a whole playlist on her Decan walk, and she's got some really good resources. And then the other two I've been really inspired to get going this year by Aaron Linto over at Witch of Saturn, and then T. Susan Chang. And if you're here at my channel, I'm pretty sure you're going to know who T. Susan Chang is. She is just an amazing author, contributor in the whole field. And my research books over here are by her. I listen to her podcast. And so I'm going to she has some great references and resources. She's done a really great recent explanation I think it's 2 videos with Mary Kay Greer. I mean, these are just, they can say way more about it. And so in fact, I am following a chart timing based on what Susan had on her website. And so go there and then come back and then see how I'm doing it. So, all right, with all that out of the way, I'm going to give you my basic understanding of what a Decan walk is to me, a little bit about how I understand it and what it is to me and what I'm looking forward to getting out of it, the resources I'm going to use and how I'm going to use them. And so if this is the first time you've been to my channel, I'm so glad you're here. I am a little bit all over the place. I do have a little checklist over here to try and keep myself on task. If you are returning, then you've seen me in action. You've probably heard me chase a bunch of squirrels all over the topic. So let's go ahead and get started. I've got some decks in front of me. I have some books. I'm going to scoot the decks to this side, and I'll actually open them up and talk about what I'm doing with them and how. I'll save that kind of for the end, but I'll tell you where I'm starting with in terms of the books. All right, so as we mentioned, T. Susan Chang, I have 2 of her reference books, and I got these because of Aaron. I had seen them, but they were on my wish list, but it was when Aaron was using them that I thought, perfect, this is an excuse. I'm going to get the books. And then I think maybe this was Aaron, maybe this was Jay over at Iridescent Tarot. I'm trying to get better about writing down, but sometimes I just get so excited about books. I just go buy them. And if you've been with me before, you've probably heard me mention that in addition to being a deck goblin, as in super enthusiastic collector, I actually started my collecting in my whole life with books. They're the first thing, well, books and rocks, but the books I started collecting when I was in kindergarten. I still have my kindergarten books, and I've collected them all my life. So books are one of those natural places. I'm also of the age, and hopefully you can't tell just from my hands, but I predate Google by a lot. And so back in the day, the only way I knew how to learn about things was to read about it. So when I got excited and hyper-focused about something, I would buy every book that I could. And I do buy books. I'm not as good at renting books from the library because I like to write in my books, and the library frowns upon that. Also, you have to give books back to the library, and I'm terrible about that. So anyway, these are my 3 new books. This first one, the Tarot Handbook, it's about symbols, and it's really great. The paper's not awesome. It's a little, it's a little bit sort of old-fashioned paperback paper, but it's okay. It's got some really good, it wasn't super expensive. I got this one, I think I got this one from Thrift Books, but I mean, it feels brand new to me. So, but it's got card by card, it's got pictures, it's got some affirmations, which I love because I do a lot of journaling. It has information about the symbols, what they are, what they represent, where else they might be seen in the deck. So this is a kind of good one. It's and it's, it says it's from a psychological, mythological, and cross-cultural perspective. And those are the things that I really love about tarot. I really do read from a psychological and mythological perspective. I love the mythology of it all. So that's that one. And then these 2 are they're a little more, I don't know, I think of them as a little fancier. They're a little more like, these are a little bit more like textbooks to me. This first one, Decoding Esoteric Symbolism in the Modern Tarot by Susan Chang and M.M. Moline. M.M. Moline has several beautiful, amazing tarot decks. She's an artist and creator as well as author and researcher with Susan Chang. I do not have any of her decks, so I won't be featuring them. They're on my wish list. I just haven't gotten them yet. I had to kind of go with what was accessible to me. But this book has been really helpful. I did just get it. I've already started really writing it. I told you I write. One thing, if you do get an early version of this, there are some actual errors. One of them, just kind of right at the beginning, I was like, wait, that can't be right, is that some elemental symbols are switched backwards. So I think it's kind of a practice that I have, especially with the book I'm going to be using as reference, especially now that we can go online and look things up, is go to the errata page and see if there's anything in your book before you get started. And especially if you're brand new to something, before you memorize it or get it in your head wrong. And maybe you have a more flexible brain than I do, but if I learn something backwards, it is just such a struggle for me to fix it. All right, so this book is, it talks about, talks about the esoteric, the occult underlining, the occult symbolism and meanings that underline the deck. It has the Kabbalah. It talks about the mythology. It talks about the astrology. It talks about the RW. It talks about different decks, RWS, Thoth, and then it goes through, and this is really has a lot of reference to the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, which was late 1800s, early 1900s, occult mysticism order group of students, ceremonial magicians. So this book does a great job of sort of explaining. I actually know nothing about the Kabbalah, and I'm basically going to ignore it pretty much at that. I mean, anything that happens to just fall into my brain as I'm studying along will get there. I have been practicing magic for 40 years, and I have elemental magic is really my home base. So that's really that mythological and elemental approach is what I'm the most interested in getting out of walking with the Decans. Oh, I didn't even sort of say, my understanding of a Decan walk is that using the Decans, which are this 10-degree segment of each astrological zodiac sign. So for instance, Leo has 30 degrees of the sky. We have 12 of them. That makes 360 degrees. Of that 30 degrees of the sky, when you divide it in 10 degrees segments, then that is a decan. And during the time that the sun is in that decan, then the ancients, some ancients, and then more recently the Golden Dawn, sort of associated different energies, gods, rulers, energies to these segments, the experience. And so by doing a Decan walk, you're really sort of exploring, paying attention to, observing the energies that are at play in that time frame, that 10 to 11 day segment of time, and then it changes. And there are, as a tarot reader, with keeping in mind these energies, then these energies are mapped to our tarot cards. Our Rider-Waite-Smith and our Thoth system are actually developed out of this understanding with these symbols in them. There are some differences between the two, which is what I was just referencing in the Tarot Deciphered that Susan Chang does a great job of explicating. So this book I highly recommend. I really like that for each card. Let's see if I can get to the beginning of one. Okay, well, actually, let's get to the beginning of the one that okay, like turning the pages is not very interesting on, here we go. Let's say the Tower, because that's one of the cards that is in the first Decan, or Aries one. And so in this book, Tarot Deciphered, it talks about the name of the card, then this Lord of the hosts of the mighty, this is like the Thoth name, talks about the different associations, the number, the planet and dignities that rule it, the Hebrew letter, the pathway on the tree of life, the color scales in the four worlds. Again, these are associations that the Golden Dawn made, and then themes and keywords. Then it talks about the astrology. It gives you some mythology and alchemy. It shows you the Kabbalah pathway. It gives you more information, gives you even different pictures of the card. This one's a Tarot de Marseille. This is the, maybe the Rider-Waite-Smith. They don't have pictures of the Thoth in here because I think they didn't get permission from them, but you can follow along if you have Thoth cards. And then it gives you more to explore. It has some magical information here. So it does that for each of the cards, and it's an incredible resource. So I'm using that. I also got the Tarot Correspondences, and this one is Susan Chang's, and this is more charts and tables. I got this one. It's interesting. It's a little bit, if I could only have one for a Decan walk, this is the one. The Tarot Deciphered is the one I would get. But there are some other correspondences and pieces in here that I think are interesting. But this is the one I'm using the most currently. So if that helps anybody, if they're trying to think about getting a book. Again, you could probably get those at a library. You definitely can get them on some used book sites, and also what I was going to say, online, used, or anyway, I don't know where my brain was going with that. All right, so let me talk about what I've got going on. I had to start this video over, so I can't remember if I mentioned it, but I first heard Sylvie talk about a Decan walk, and then I heard Marlena Teresa talk about it, and then she actually showed hers. Sylvie probably did too. Maybe I didn't follow their videos quite as much. I'm quite new to astrology. I mean, I've been around astrology my whole life. It hasn't sunk in. I didn't really relate to it. And then last year I wanted to try to do a Decan walk, and I got this book. This is an independent book. The book is separate. This is a deck. It's actually an set of oracle cards called The Wild Way. And this is by a Scottish artist. I'm pretty sure she's Scottish, Nicola, Allan. And these are, if you just order the deck, they do actually come with cards that list out the decans. You can see Aries. 1 is the top line, 2 is the second line, 3 is the third line, for all of the decans, and then it actually has some information about the Sabbats. So you could totally just use these. I have already mentioned how much I love books, so I bought the separate book, which I think is actually a really terrific resource. It is hardback. I tend to prefer not to have hardback. I know they're fancier and everything, but they're heavier, and I love to carry my books around. And I end up with piles of books in my bed, and sometimes if it's a hardback, it'll slide off and clunk me on the head while I'm sleeping. Anyway, you didn't need to know that. Here we go. The contents, and this is actually smooth kind of magazine paper. It's really fun to touch. I have sensory stuff. I love to touch this. It's a little harder to write on, but there you go. And so it lists the decans, and it has information, about lunar phases, which I'm really familiar with. So, and it talks about the artist and how the research came about. And then it gives some information about the decans of the zodiac and the planets. This was really helpful. This, if you're experienced, you might not need this part, but this was actually really helpful. I didn't even know the difference between a sun sign and a moon sign or rising. None of that made any sense. I certainly didn't know what cardinal, fixed, and mutable were until, the past couple of years. So this was helpful. And oh, sorry, I think I lost sound there for just a moment. We'll see if I can learn how to fix that. Otherwise, maybe you'll just stick with me. So this is it's a great resource. It's got a Decan wheel in here. So we start over here in Aries and go around this way. The thing that is interesting to me about these cards, they are based on the Picatrix and Agrippa and, some of those, but they are interpreted in a very easy to see, gentle way. The Picatrix deck, if you've seen that one, it's a little, some of those decks are kind of interesting and just slightly, I don't know, they're just a little odd. To me, it's a little bit like reading the book of Revelations. I mean, I get that it's mythopoetic and there, some associations, but it's also a little bit hard going. These cards are very gentle. They're very gentle without being saccharine, I think is the way I think about it. So I'll get just the, okay, these are one. So looking at just the Decan cards, you have a card, and they're all these forest creatures. So at the bottom, it kind of gives you a phrase, go boldly. And then it tells you that this is Aries 1, and it's the first in the whole series. So if you're brand new, then this will help you. And this is 2 in the whole Wheel of the Year, and it's Take the Lead, and this is Aries 2. And then you've got the picture, and it goes through with these very sweet, oh, I love him. I can't wait to get to him. So for me, this is a very low stakes, sweet, invitational, slightly cutesy way. And I don't like cutesy if it's too much, but for me, these were exactly perfect. Also, I tend to really like animals better than people. So this was a really good way to get into the deck. So you have one card for every decan all the way through the year. And this is an oracle because you don't have to do a decan walk with it. You could just shuffle and pull a message and then look at who the sort of zodiacal and archetypal energies are and think about those and how they apply to where you are now. Or if you were interested in the timing of something, you could pull one of these cards and it might give you, say, a specific time if you are interested in predictive oracular readings like that. So there are a lot of ways, and as I mentioned, there are also cards about the Sabbats and the, here in the back, and there's information on the lunar phases. So that is this and this deck, and I had the first one. This is the one that we are in. And I'll just give you a little hint. Talks about, here we go. So it talks about being at the start, and it talks about what the actual image is, right? The little Aries 1 squirrel bravely leads us out to the very first face of the zodiac. As you'd expect from a double Mars ruled decan, it's a place of bold action, intense fire, and unbridled energy. Here we certainly do not look before we leap. It favors taking the most direct path possible and chopping down anything or anyone that stands in your way. It references Austin Coppock, who is a very famous author. So Austin Coppock names the decan get in frame. The axe, we see reference to the axe mentioned in quite a few of the ancient descriptions for this Decan. So here we've got the axe. It's talking about Mars. There, he's even a little red squirrel, which is reference to the description. So anyway, so that's, and it does that for each one of them, and it references Susan Chang, and it gives you a Rider-Waite-Smith image of the Two of Wands, and then it talks about these other pieces. So for Aries 2, in another now like 7 days, we'll move into Aries 2, and it'll do the same thing. So it's a really great reference. It's a really good way to start. It's really fun. So for me, that's my basic. But then I also have some other decks that I got to kind of support because I wanted to look at what was going on. So I got, this is my current favorite version of the RWS. I have a Centennial Edition that I look at too, but I love Jamie Sawyer's 1909 RWS Tarot. This is this Sawyer Redux edition. And then I only have two. Do I have two? Well, I have one. This is a Thoth based. I'm not a Thoth, although my friend Tammy Pye is trying to turn me into one. She makes a really good case. But the Urban Tarot and the RWS, I wanted to have a version of each so I could look at those for myself for the Decan. And then on top of that, I'm really interested in the astrology. So this is actually this little Star Codes pocket. Well, I have the pocket version. I also have the big one. But this Star Codes Astro Oracle is, I bought before I started collecting tarot cards. I was just really looking at oracle cards, and I bought it because it was pretty. I saw the backs of these cards, and I just had to have them. Look at how, they're just gorgeous. So a little aspirational. I wanted to know more about astrology, and actually this deck overwhelmed me, and I gave up. I sort of knew I could name aren't these fun? I could name the astrological signs. I grew up reading my horoscope the way a lot of people did. The problem for me, one of the issues with astrology, and I've said it before, is that I am technically a Leo, and I just have always felt almost embarrassed by that because I don't feel like a Leo. I'm a broken Leo or something. So these cards I pulled out, these are the ones I'm going to use. These are the zodiacal signs, and then these are the 7, well, there are 6 here, but the 7th one is over here, of the classical kind of planets, celestial bodies that rule in conjunction with the zodiac sign for each Decan. This deck actually has more. It has dignified, debilitated, retrograde, solar calm, flares. It has other solar bodies, right? Pluto's not one of the classic planets. It has Chiron and Ceres and Pallas Athena, Juno, Vesta. It has South Node, North Node, Ascendant, Midheaven, Descendant. I didn't know what any of these were. I still don't know what you do with square, semi-square, quincum X. I have no idea what that means. Transits, progressions. I've been around the houses. I didn't know what the houses had to do with anything. So again, I've just had these cards in my collection. They're pretty, and I have used them a little bit as an oracle. They do come with a book. I actually have the bigger book that I use because it's just easier. It doesn't have pictures on the inside of the book, which is fine with me because the pictures on the cards are so pretty. And it does, I think, a good job if you just want to use it as an oracle and to read about it, but doesn't actually, if you don't know about astrology, you're not going to learn what that card means overall. Like the houses, I just kind of, even the concept of houses I didn't understand, and I was like, well, I pulled this card and I could read what the guidebook, so those aren't houses. Where are the houses? Here, so I could do that. But in terms of why do they call the 8th house? What does a house have to do with anything? Where understanding a chart, this is not going to help you. You have to already know that, or you have to just be willing to not know it, which is where I was. So what I've done with these, I'll put these back. What I've done for each of these is for the Decan that we're in. So the first thing I did was I went through and I pulled out my Aries one. And I watched Aaron Linto's video, I watched Susan Chang's video, and I learned that for Aries 1, for our first Decan, that the major arcana cards are the Tower and the Emperor, because this is, oh, am I going to say it right? Mars in Aries, right? So the association in the major arcana for Aries is the Emperor. It's the fourth card, Aries, the Ram. And then for Mars, it's the Tower. And so I pulled that out for both my RWS and my Thoth. Here's the Emperor. Can I get it on camera? There we go. Here's my Oracle up at the top, which we already talked about. And then the other card I pulled out was the minor arcana card that goes with it, which is the Two of Wands. So I could look at that. And in the Thoth system, this Urban Tarot that I'll show you in a minute, they are very tall, so they're kind of a little hard to get on screen. And so it's Dominion is the title in the Thoth system. All right, so this is very RWS, but one of the brilliant things that Jamie Sawyer has done is in the mandala, in the background of these cards, you can see it has the correspondence here. It has the Mars in Aries symbol along with our Two of Wands. And here's the red, right? I don't really know where the X is, but that's maybe in another deck. And then I pulled out from my astro cards that I was just telling you about, I pulled out Mars in Aries. So I have these all sitting out. I put them in my journal. I'm writing a little bit more. I'm, sort of researching, kind of sitting with these. I don't actually find, this is based on Thoth understanding, but this is not, these pictures are not Lady Frida Harris's artwork, right? I don't have an actual Thoth deck. It's just Thoth system aligned. And this is the Urban Tarot. I think the art style is interesting, and I'm not super comfortable with those. I certainly gravitate more towards this art style representation, but I'm learning. I'm trying to build some associations, and I think these are a lot of fun. And then the last one, so here we go. I'll kind of move these over a little bit. And I tend to keep these, I have an altar set up where I have the cards kind of in a row, but I move around a lot. We have construction on our house, and I'm kind of between houses and doing things. So I'm actually on the go, and I have this little card holder. It's just a passport holder, and I've been carrying my cards. It'll hold oracle size cards and regular RWS and smaller, or regular tarot and smaller. It'll hold them in this little pocket. These ones are a little too tall, so I've just been kind of tucking them over here, but then that's my little card protector, and I can travel with it. So I'm just going to show you, if you haven't seen Jamie Sawyer's deck, this is what it looks like. It's RWS, but you can see it's got the symbols in the background. I love this deck. It is my comfort. I love Pamela Coleman Smith Pixies. I love her artwork now too. I didn't used to. I had to grow, and I had to learn more about the meaning and more about her, and now I love it. But I love Jamie Sawyer's even more. So, and this deck has just become a comfort. It's become a favorite. In fact, when I took a trip recently, I got to go to Egypt. And if you're interested in my trip, I have a video on that. I'll put that in the description box so you can just hear a little bit of a chatty walkthrough. But while I was there, I actually stood in a museum in front of a papyrus and a description of the Decans. I mean, they started off, the idea of the Decans goes back as far as ancient Egypt. Now, the way we use them and work with them, the associations we make are different, right? The Egyptian deities and the way they believed that the soul moved through the 12 realms and then returned back, and the way they looked at the sky was a little bit different, but the start of it, that seed, it goes back that far. And while I was there, I had this deck, and I happened to be there at a time when the world got turbulent, world events overtook. I actually had to come home early. The US citizens were told to get out, and so by our government, not by the Egyptian government, by the American government. And in the couple of days after things started, but before we were actually told to get out, I was walking around with just a day pack in case I just needed to go and I needed to abandon my luggage, but I couldn't abandon this deck. I carried it with me everywhere, and it was actually really reassuring and helpful to help myself reflect and think and figure out what I wanted to do and why I wanted to do it, and just to kind of be calm. For me, even just flipping through cards is calming and soothing, helps me think, helps me sort of order my thoughts, to see these images, to even figure out sometimes what my questions to myself are. So this deck has been really helpful, and I think I kind of was looking for a reason to have it in practice some more this year, and so having it be my RWS representation for my first Decan walk just seemed exactly right. Also, and this is a pretty big also, but Jamie Sawyer this year offered, I don't have them, they're arriving today, but offered a sticker set. And if you've been with me before, you know I'm low-key obsessed with stickers. I love them. And Jamie Sawyer does beautiful ones. So there's a vinyl sticker. There's also a set to help you to journal with in your Decan walk based on this deck. So that was just a no-brainer. My favorite deck plus stickers. Hello. Yes. Thank you very much. This deck, as I said, the Urban Tarot, I've had for just under a year. I think I got it maybe last summer, and it was a total impulse buy. Like, I bought it, I didn't even know it was a Toth deck, or I probably wouldn't have got it, but now I'm glad I have it. This is a deck by Robin Scott. Yeah, Robin Scott, Urban Tarot. And oh, look, there's an Urban Tarot mobile app, which I don't have. And look at these backs. Aren't those cool? Again, I kind of got this one because I was with my recovery partner. We were at a cool metaphysical shop I wanted to support. They had this deck. I hadn't heard about it. I liked the backs. I talked to the shop owner who really liked this deck, uses it a lot, showed me a couple images, and I thought, okay, I'm just going to risk it. And then I got home and looked at it, and I was like, oh, this is sort of Toth-based. It's modern, you know, it's urban, modern. I like this imagery. I like the way it's layered. I thought, well, if I'm going to have a Toth deck, this is maybe an invitation, a way in. And so I was excited to bring this into my Decan walk to get more comfortable with the whole Toth system, one little bite at a time. I mean, I do actually really like some of these images. I will say, I definitely, one of the big issues that I have with the court cards is my elemental associations are completely different from the Toth system. And I mapped them when I was first reading tarot, and maybe I shouldn't have done this, but they got in my head because I've been using elemental associations for 40 years. And so, oops, just knocked the camera, sorry. Anyway, so I didn't have as much of an association with other cards, but the court cards, particularly when I was just working with them, and intuition, which is really based on my experience with things. So I have these associations that do not match the the Thoth system, or the Golden Dawn system in general, for the court cards specifically. I'm very comfortable. In fact, you'll see when I keep my decks, the way I order my decks, they always start with, I cast circle, I think of it as north, east, south, west, and then to the center. So I always start with the minor arcana and I spiral in and I end up with the majors. And so I start in the north, or with the element of earth, and then I move to the east, which is swords. I move to the south, which is fire. It's noonday sun, it's the element of fire. And I move to the west, water. And so for me, and then I move into the center for the spiral. So for me, the pages are the element of air. The knights are fire. They're the ones that go out in the motion. The queens are water. They're the ones who heal and balance things. And then the north kings are earth. They are the grounding, the sort of final step. They're the sort of dark before we start again with the breath. And that's an association in my brain that is just not going to change. And you can see that they're, and they also go knight, queen, prince, princess. I can't even. And these elements just, what I like about this deck, about this particular deck with the Thoth associations, is that it's very lightly inscribed in here. So it's actually fairly easy for me to ignore and not break my brain on. So, but I like that Princess of Swords. So these cards are really cool. So that's a little bit of a view of the Urban Tarot. And then I thought I was all set. And then I just got a little bit of a impulse, because I have been going back and forth. And before I, kind of committed to carrying these back and forth, I thought, well, maybe I should just have a little deck that's, I can leave these on my altar and I can go with a little deck in a tin. And I had this on my wish list. This is a mass market. It is not expensive. I did get it from Amazon. I'm sorry for those of you who hate Amazon, but it was really accessible. I think it was like $13. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to get it. Then I can travel with this. I can leave these other cards. And it's this darling little deck. I'm a sucker for decks in a tin. I have a hard time with the super minis, but this is a really nice size. It's just a little bit smaller than playing cards. And I like the art style in these. They're in black, and they have the associations up at the top. So I thought, oh, this will be perfect. It's a little kind of cartoon illustrations here, but I mean, and this is a deck by Cecilia Latari. And so, I mean, I actually just fell in love with this deck the minute I pulled it out. And then I realized, as I was looking at it, I was like, wait a minute, that's the Knight of Pentacles. So, and I was like, wait, look at the way she's doing the associations. She has the Page of Pentacles as heir of Pentacles, right? Heir of Earth. And then the Knight, fire of Earth. And then the Queen is the water of Earth. And then the King is earth of Earth. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's exactly the way I think of them. And I had no idea when I got this deck that she did that. And then I was like, immediately jumped in this little book. Oh, I maybe shouldn't, I cursed here. But I mean, then she explains why she did that. And I'm like, she must be from the same magical tradition that I am, because I was just so excited. So now I have this deck where it has the zodiacal associations that align in all the other places, but then the court cards work exactly the way I think of them. So this is my new favorite. This is my new favorite little deck. And again, it was really accessible. So I've added this deck, and here are the ones. Here is our Aries, our Emperor. Here's our Mars, our Tower. Oh, people falling off. And then here is our Two of Wands, Mars and Aries for Aries 1, our first decan. All right, so I think I've said everything I meant to say. I think that I have shown you all of my resources, my little tips and tricks. I am journaling. I probably won't share my journals on camera. I often do, but first of all, they're a little bit scattered, and second of all, I am writing some pretty personal connections and disconnections, so I may not show those, unlike the way I usually do. I usually share my journals about things. So all right, thank you so much for being with me. If you are taking a Decan walk, I would love to know about it. If you've posted a video, I might have already seen it. But go ahead and tell me that if you're doing that, if you're posting videos. If you're doing it but you're not posting videos, please go ahead and comment and talk to me about it. Tell me what decks you're using, what resources. Do y'all have the Moline deck? I'm kind of interested in that. Some of those ones that I've seen, the 777 and Telos, and there's another, the Picatrix, and anyway, some of those other sort of more traditional, classic, maybe esoteric decks. So I'm watching that. All right. Thank you very much for being here. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Oh, do all the YouTube stuff. If you like this, give me a thumbs up and subscribe, all that stuff. All right. Till the next time. Bye, my friend.